We've come a long way, friends. From that primordial soup to a vast global culture. It's an incredible thing. At some point along the way, we gazed up and wondered, what's up there? At first, we saw gods, and we believed that they controlled our fate. Maybe we'd even meet them someday. And with our eyes on the afterlife, it was easy to forget about the here and now. And then one day, some of us stopped looking up and started looking all around, and we felt awe and wonder. And looking at each other, we noticed something. We're all in the same predicament. We're all trying to make some sense of our limited time on this beautifully flawed world. So, those same people started to look back up again. And suddenly, they didn't see gods or spirits or an afterlife. They only saw sky. Because what we've been looking for was never up there. It's right here. It's the care and compassion we give to each other. OnlySky is world-class journalism and storytelling, created by and dedicated to one of the fastest-growing movements on the planet. Those who choose to find meaning in each other. Because we only have one world, and we only get to live one life. Come celebrate the natural world and the fascinating human experience. Join us at OnlySky.
Welcome, everyone. Good to see everybody here. Welcome to Only Sky's Ask Me Anything. We're live with Hemant Mehta. My name's Marcus Johnson. I'm an editor and staff writer at Only Sky, and I'm going to be your host today. Hemant is a contributor and content advisor at Only Sky. He's the founder and editor of FriendlyAtheist.com. He's a YouTube creator and a podcast co-host. He's appeared on CNN and Fox News and served on the board of directors at the Foundation Beyond Belief and the Secular Student Alliance. So we'll get started in a moment with questions that were submitted by folks who registered, and then we'll start taking live questions from the chat. To participate in the chat, simply log in or register for a free membership at onlysky.media/my-account. The same community guidelines we enforce in the commenting section apply to the live chat. So please be kind and respectful and help our moderators by flagging any content you see that violates our guidelines. And with that, we'll get started. So now we're going to get started with the pre-submitted questions. All right.
Hey,
first question. Christian nationalists have, generally speaking, been more organized than liberals in accomplishing their goals. So he's talking about, or they're talking about identifying someone like Brett Kavanaugh many years before they were nominated. So how can we organize as effectively to combat the misinformation that often dismisses us as fearmongers and regain some of the ground in the fight for church-state separation?
It's a great question. It's an important question. I wish I had an easy answer. I don't. But here's the interesting thing. We have to play the long game. Think about Roe v. Wade and trying to overturn it. That's something that's been in the works for the Christian right for like 4 decades now. And like the Federalist Society that handles kind of the judicial nominees for the Republican Party, they like know which are the elite schools. They know who the conservatives are at those elite schools, and they like get to know them. They work their way in. They're all part of that special. They get selected like early on as a person with whom like Republican politicians should know. Like as soon as you have power and there's a vacancy, this is someone you need to nominate for that chair. Like they get really good at scouting out who the talented people are on their side and then work to put those people in a position of power. There is no equivalent of that on the left. And there is no equivalent of that, more broadly speaking, in terms of people who support church-state separation. Here's the optimistic part about that. I feel like people who care about church-state separation and reproductive rights and LGBTQ rights are much more aware of how this system has been rigged over the past couple of decades. They are, I hope, if nothing else, the overturning of Roe inspires a lot of people who might have been apathetic to vote like the courts and their future depends on it, because it does, and we're witnessing that in real time. But part of that means we need people in those positions. We need lawyers who, if you're someone who's going to law school, make that a part of what you do. One of my friends who's gonna do an AMA for us in a couple of weeks, Monica Miller. She works with the American Humanist Association. She also cares deeply about animal rights. So not only does she pay attention to church-state separation issues and does that for a living, she also cares about these other issues and makes herself available for those issues too. Like, we need people in those positions who are going to be lawyers to actively work to support civil rights in whatever venues they may be. And then we need politicians in place who can put those people on the federal bench when that happens. And we're not alone here. Like, this is not an atheist only thing. Name your cause, whether it's civil rights, racial justice, social justice, feminism, whatever. All of us are kind of in the same boat because the same people are hurting all of our causes. And the thing is, we have the numbers on our side. We have the, I would hope, momentum and public support on our side. There's no reason we can't do it, but we're up against a much smaller group of very organized people. So the short answer is that, how do we organize? How do we get people to fight back? We have to start taking the courts as seriously as the right has done over the years, identifying the best judges, the best activists, the best attorneys, and getting them in a position where they can actually make a bigger difference.
Okay, so now I'm going to move to our second question. How close do you think we are to a Christian theocracy in this country? How worried should atheists be after the recent Supreme Court decisions?
Yeah, it feels like we're heading in that direction, doesn't it? I don't think we're going to get to a quote unquote theocracy, because I think even the Christian right doesn't like that word. They don't want to say they're heading toward a theocracy. They want to pretend like the secular democracy we're supposed to live in just happens to cater to their religion. It's very privileged place to be if you're them. So I don't think we're going to get there in name, but we are getting very close to a place where, one party is wholly controlled by Bible believers who take the Bible more seriously than they take the Constitution. If something in the Constitution goes against their Bible or their interpretations of the Bible, then the Constitution loses. And that is what's scary. One thing that is deeply frustrating for me is watching like liberals, Democrats in charge who don't have the language or the anger to push back against it. I wish they did. I wish they would call out Christian nationalism for what it is. I wish they would say, it doesn't matter what religion you are. We're in this together. And any policy that benefits Christians explicitly should upset everyone, Christians included. But only a handful of politicians are willing to say that out loud. And we need to get in their face about it. We need to, listen, call up your elected officials if they're not saying the things you want them to say, even if they belong to your party. And if you live in a red state, they need to hear from you. They need to know that you're angry. They need to know you care about church-state separation and you're not asking for special treatment. You just want the treatment that conservative Christians get. So I want people to recognize that right now, the way the system is set up, it benefits conservative Christians specifically. And unless the rest of us, the majority of us, get angry vocally, start talking about it publicly, not shying away from those conversations, it's never going to reach the people that it needs to reach who are in a position to do something about it.
All right, and our next question is, how do we get more men involved in protecting women's rights and more white people involved in protecting brown and black people's rights?
Yeah. Also, very important question. I mean, so I feel like I don't want to put myself on a pedestal because I'm not. The I think the thing I learned listening to, like, let's take LGBTQ rights. I say this as a cisgender hetero guy. The thing that I can try to do to help out in that situation is try to elevate voices of people who are part of that community, who understand those issues at a deeper level much more than I do, because I don't know that stuff. And in the position I have, where I'm writing about this stuff or tweeting about it, I can try to highlight those voices. So, what do you do if you're a man and it comes to reproductive rights? First of all, listen, read what women are writing about this stuff. If you're in a position where you can share, if you like sharing things on Facebook, share the voices of women who are making great points. If you're a white person trying to speak out about brown rights, black people's rights, there are so many amazing books, social media outlets, places that elevate those voices, talk about those issues really well. At one level, you can try to understand what they're saying because you don't have the lived experience. So listen, read, just learn this stuff so you're in a position to talk about that. And if you're in a position where you like influencing people, or you try to, whether it's posting on Facebook, writing on Twitter, whatever social media platform you like, point people to those voices. I mean, specifically in the atheist movement, I would love to see more atheist organizations that have magazines, that hold conferences. I mean, at the very least, put people in the spotlight who are not coming from that traditional point of view. Because, I mean, I've been in this movement for like 20 years. It's not that like Hitchens or Dawkins is wrong about the atheism thing, but I've heard their voices. I know what they say. There are so many other people talking about other aspects of it that I feel I don't hear enough, and I live and breathe this stuff all the time. So, one thing I want to do is make sure I'm pointing people to voices that they should hear or want to hear. I don't think I did enough of that, or I certainly didn't do a good job of that a while ago. I hope I'm a little better at it now. But this is what you do. If you want to be a good ally, but some issue doesn't affect you directly, one, make sure you understand it as well as you can. And two, try to push, elevate, share the words of people who are living and breathing it. I want to read more essays. I want to hear more voices from women who are affected by abortion restrictions right now. I want to hear what Black people have to say about racial justice, social justice issues. I don't need to hear from the same voices that tend to be on TV or tend to be guests on podcasts or what have you.
All right, our next question is, what do you see as the next stage of evolution for atheism? How can one be an effective activist for non-religious causes?
This is an interesting case because I think this is something we could have an argument on in good faith with a lot of other atheists. Like, what is the next goal for atheism? I mean, I think there are some people who would argue there's literally one goal. We want people to stop believing in God. And when I was younger, we didn't have a lot of resources for that. They were hard to find at the very least. And one of the cool, amazing things that our movement as a whole has done is make sure resources like that and voices and books and all that, they have been out there. So you can find books talking about why God doesn't make sense. You like podcasts? There are a bunch of them. You like YouTube videos? There are some amazing people out there making videos about this stuff. So if you're looking for reasons for why you shouldn't believe in God, there are a lot out there. And there are new ones all the time. And they're really good. I don't want to dismiss any of that. But for me, and I think this is true of OnlySky in general, the question is, okay, I'm an atheist. I don't need to be convinced that God doesn't exist. Like, I'm good on that front. So what would be helpful for me? What am I wanting at this point? I don't need another God delusion. Like, it's good. It's out there. I'm sure it'll be helpful to some people. What would be helpful for me? What I want to see is a way to implement my hopefully reason-based, evidence-based beliefs. I want to make sure that those are put into practice. I want outlets for sharing my secularism. So in some cases, that means I want to make sure my legal rights are defended, sure, and there are groups doing that. But there's a group called Go Humanity, formerly Foundation Beyond Belief, that says, hey, are you an atheist? You want to do charity work, the type you might have done in your church back in the day? We have a vessel for you to donate to good causes and do on the ground volunteer work, especially in places that have been hit by some natural disaster or something. That's amazing. I want to see politicians, I want to see more atheists running for office, not because I need you to advance atheism in that role, but because I want your policies to be guided by rationality and reason and evidence, because we see so little of that, it seems. I want to see more atheists running for office. I want to see us more active. Again, not unlike the Christian right, I don't want to be active in the sense that I need politicians promoting my beliefs from their platforms. I just want secularism, the like small s secularism, as a basis for how we run our government. And so I what's the next stage of evolution? It's putting our atheism that we fought really hard. A lot of people fought really hard to make sure people could be atheists safely without feeling social stigma. Now let's put that into practice in a way that everyone benefits from it. And we can make an argument as to why this benefits even religious people, because we're not asking for special treatment. So I feel like the next phase is going to be political action and making sure people are not hurt because of our beliefs, as opposed to what we're seeing right now when the Christian right is using their power to hurt as many groups outside their bubble as possible.
And so our next question is, as our numbers get bigger, are existing atheist groups getting bigger, or are new non-believers finding community in other ways?
Oh, that's a fun question. Are atheist groups getting bigger? I mean, you want to ask the atheist groups themselves. I don't know what their membership numbers are. I don't know if they're getting just steadily, slowly growing, or if they're seeing any drop off. But I will tell you this, like, a lot of people that I grew up with who were so passionate about atheism as a thing, they wanted to share the gospel of non-belief with other people, but they found vehicles for that passion, as I did, with organized atheist groups. Personally, I did it with the Secular Student Alliance, which focused on like college atheists. So what's happening these days? A lot of people who are passionate about church-state separation or causes that are hurt by religious conservatism, whether it's LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights, etc. I found that a lot of atheists who might have gone into who volunteer with atheist nonprofit groups, they are now volunteering or working in nonprofit arenas for those other causes because they know religious conservatism is hurting these other issues, environmentalism. So they work in those areas. So it's not that even if atheist groups might be dying off, or even if their memberships are getting lower, we're actually spreading out a lot wider than we used to be. Because a lot of passionate atheists who want to make the world a better place are going into areas of activism that are not necessarily focused on God. I think that's a really good thing. Like, if you are an atheist, if you're passionate about church-state separation, there are so many different areas you could be working in. Or even if you're working a job that is not an activist cause, whether you're volunteering for those causes in your free time or donating your money or time in your spare time to those causes is also important. So I feel like our new non-believers finding community, I feel like they are. They're finding an in crowd. They are finding people they share values with. I don't know that those are necessarily atheist groups per se, though.
All right, our next question is, how can we organize as effectively to combat the misinformation that dismisses us as fearmongers and regain some of the ground in the fight for church-state separation?
When it comes to combating misinformation, I mean, this is a big change from what it was 10, 20 years ago, because atheist activists, if you're trying to decrease the stigma of atheism, it's not really, we're not fighting an uphill battle anymore. I think if, let's say, hypothetically, some politician posted some campaign ad saying, don't vote for my opponent, she's an atheist, I feel like there would be a backlash, not just from our community, but from a lot of other people in general. We have supporters and allies across the board now. I've seen this in lawsuits. When it comes to writing amicus briefs that go to the Supreme Court, like American Atheists, for example, is not writing a brief for themselves, or the Freedom from Religion Foundation is not doing it for themselves. They might work with a Southern Baptist group that focuses on church, or a Baptist group that focuses on church-state separation. They might ally with a Jewish group or a Hindu group. So in terms of combating misinformation and fighting for church-state separation, what's really cool is we're not the only ones who care about that anymore. We can work in conjunction with so many other religious minorities, progressive Christians, so many organizations will help us push back. But I think that's what we got to do. We got to, don't let any nasty comment about atheists, don't let it slide. We got to make sure we are forcefully pushing back against it. And when it comes from someone in a position of power, we got to make a big deal about it, that, whatever you just said about atheists, it would never be okay if, this governor said the same thing about religious group X, Y, or Z. We need to push that into the public sphere as much as we can.
Okay, this one is from JTD Freelance. Which evangelical do you think is the greatest threat right now? I think there's a lot of different people to choose from, but interesting question.
It's so hard to narrow it down to just one. Which evangelical is the greatest threat right now? I mean, if I'm trying to set up guidelines here, it would have to be someone who holds all the views that are hurting people and also has the largest platform available to them. And on that metric, I wonder if Franklin Graham, the evangelist, Billy Graham's son, might be one of the most powerful evangelicals today, and therefore the one who could do the most damage. I mean, this guy has well over 10 million Facebook followers. When he posts anything, whether it's vitriolic, anti-LGBTQ, whatever, it is going out and being shared by so many people. It can really set the tone for how evangelicals see stuff. There are other hateful Christian messengers out there, but not all of them have the same pulpit and the same oddly undeserved respect, I would argue, that someone like Franklin Graham has. So I wonder if he might be the greatest threat, because he just has the biggest platform to spout, conservative Christian views and therefore influence a lot of your most annoying relatives.
Okay, and our next question is how to stay sane while the religious right takes us beyond the abyss.
How to stay safe. I don't know if I'm a good person to ask that question, because I don't know that I do. I do take solace in the fact that popular opinion is on our side. That the majority of people, especially younger people, agree with our values. Not atheism, but they agree with church-state separation and bodily autonomy, and they oppose, restrictions on sex education and things like that. They are on our side. Most Americans are on our side. The problem is that the minority beliefs seem to have the most power, and gerrymandering doesn't help. And the fact that one entire political party seems to be controlled by that minority, that's where it gets frustrating. But like the long-term trends, they're on our side. We just have to be more effective in how we wield that power, because the other side is very effective. We are not organized. We do not get out the vote like they do. It's so weird that these people are wrong about so many things. Their beliefs are based on myths and lies, and yet for some reason the one thing they're really good at is voting out by election day. They're so good at it, and our downside is It's not like an apocalyptic problem for so many of us. It's very easy for us to grow apathetic. That's what we got to fight against. I've heard politicians, Democratic politicians, say this. I am not trying to win over the other side. I'm trying to get apathetic people on my side. I'm trying to get non-voters to vote because I don't need to convince the other people to vote for me. I need to convince non-voters to vote for me because they already agree with me. And in the case of like when the religious right is taking over, I need more people to recognize how damning that power is. I need them to fight back. I need them to vote at the very least, but also push back when they see people in their lives spreading misinformation, using their religion to hurt other people. That's what I want them to do.
All right. And before we start moving on to the next set of questions, I just want to take the time to thank all of our supporting and founding members for keeping OnlySky's content and events like this free and open to the public. OnlySky is the only platform exploring the whole human experience from a secular perspective. The non-religious are going to become the greatest, or not the greatest, the largest religious demographic in the nation, but they continue to be underserved in the media landscape. We think the non-religious voices, their stories, and their perspectives are important. It's why we do what we do. Please help us sustain our work and continue to make an impact by becoming a supporting or founding member at onlysky.media/support. Okay, so now we're going to move to the last set of questions. And the next question is, are you working on any books right now? I think all of us would like to read more of your long form work.
I'm not working on any books right now. I actually wonder, Marcus, I don't know if this is true for you too. I feel like it's been a while since I've read a long book. I don't know if that's my attention span or social media or what. Like, I love writing blog posts because those are meant to be written and read with an expiration date on them, I feel, at least in my case. So I'm trying to focus more on short form writing in the short term, more so than a long-term book. Because again, to be honest with you, I just don't know how many people will read it compared to a blog post, which has immediate impact if it's well done. But if you want me to write one, man, if anyone's listening, if you would rather have a book, I'd be very interested in hearing from you. Because I just feel like most of my audience are people that like short form stuff.
All right, so our next question is, do you think widely held religious beliefs will slowly die out over time without help from non-religious groups?
Without help from non-religious groups? I That's a good question. I mean, the thing about religion is that it gives people hope, and they always need hope. So I don't know that religious beliefs are going to die out anytime soon, even no matter what atheists do about it. What I hope is that the most malignant forms of religion will die out. Like, no one wants to see the Bible used as justification to like stone people or execute them if they break some petty rule. Like, good. I'm glad we have moved away from that by and large. So like, I hope, if nothing else, I want to see. I know, personally speaking, I don't care if someone's a Christian. What I do care about is if they're using their beliefs for good and if they're pushing back against the most conservative members of their community. I want to see more non religious people and religious people with progressive values fight back against conservative Christianity, conservative name your religion, because we can fight back against religious extremism. I think a lot of people would be on board with that. But I think a lot of progressive religious people are not comfortable necessarily speaking out against, people they might go to church with, or their pastors. And I wish we saw more people who grew up in church culture, who know the religion and the subculture associated with it. I want to see them speaking out against their own faith or the worst behaviors of it. Then the worst religious beliefs may fall out of line. I mean, I've seen this with like purity culture in evangelical circles. So harmful. So many people have grown up in evangelical churches where they were taught purity culture, that any form of sex was all bad all the time. I mean, it's so harmful. And in the past few years, so many of them, who are still Christian, by the way, have openly spoken about how harmful it was, to the point where even the guy who wrote the textbook on it has had to be like, sorry, I never should have done that. So, I mean, that creates change in the long run. More religious people than ever before are comfortable with marriage equality and gay people in general. That's a big switch. I hope we see that with abortion rights too in the near future. But it's happening, and it happens when people like us and people who still believe in God but don't believe in these conservative views rally against it and speak out against it.
Okay, so our next question is, what is your least favorite aspect of atheist activism? What about atheist activism would you like to see changed in your lifetime?
I think the thing that annoys me the most about atheist activists in general, and I say this as someone who is arguably an atheist activist, is thinking we've won something if someone becomes an atheist. Like, no, who cares? If 10 people said, "Hey, I'm not religious today. I'm an atheist now." It's like, "All right, good for you. I don't care. Like, my life is not better. Nobody's life is better now. I hope it's good for you." It's an important step. What matters to me is what you are doing with those beliefs. So if your atheism leads you to buy into, right-wing lies about, like, critical race theory or something, then who cares if you're an atheist? You're still irrational. You're still falling for BS. So it didn't matter that you're an atheist. And on the flip side, if someone believes in God, but they are pushing back against misinformation and they're fighting back against conservative activism when it comes to social issues and the environment and things like that, then do I really care that that person believes in God? Why would I waste my time trying to convince that person God doesn't exist? It's such a low priority. So, what annoys me about atheist activism? Thinking the battle is over when someone becomes an atheist. Like, that, it's nice, but it's not enough. We got to go much further than that.
All right, our next question is, if you could interview anyone, who would you interview?
That's a good one. I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. You know what I might want to see? There are so many people who kind of grew up in that new atheist era where it was not easy to just come out and say you're an atheist. There was stigma, far more than there is now. Um, I kind of want to see those interviews again. I wonder what some of the people who are activists 15, 20 years ago would say today. How many of their views have changed? I don't think they would have changed on the God question, but I wonder if tactically speaking, they have any. I wonder how much of what they did they would change now. Like, I swear, so much of our activism 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, was just trying to turn people into atheists. And we did that maybe at the expense of creating allies with groups that still share our values when it comes to church state separation. So, did we focus on the wrong thing? And I would love to see, maybe I don't have to interview them, but in general, I kind of want to know, for those activists that have been doing this for a while, did you succeed, or were you focused on the wrong thing? I kind of wonder what they would all say about that.
All right, our next question is, do you do any work with ex-Muslim groups? How can we help support and foster ex-Muslims?
Do I do any work with them? No, not personally. There are groups. There is ex-Muslims of North America. There are ex-Muslim groups in general. And this is an interesting question because they have a unique subculture. I could say the same thing about Black atheists. Like, it's not just about God, because you have a culture you got to walk away from in some cases, or it certainly feels that way. So what can we do? We want to support those, like, ex-Muslim groups, because they understand what the challenges are and that just because we can convince you that God doesn't exist doesn't mean you're out of the woods. There are so many other minefields you got to navigate. And so what do? We got to let people know these resources are out there. There are ex-Mormon groups. There are groups for like ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or Orthodox Jews or anyone like that. And we have to make sure people are aware that, hey, it's harder for you to come out as an atheist than it might be if you are this type of person. So here are the resources that might help you out. And again, if that doesn't apply to you, that's fine. But please, if you're in the habit of sharing things online or talking about this stuff, use that platform to share those groups. There are so many out there. And I think the problem is they just don't get a lot of attention. And I wish they did.
In this challenging political and cultural climate, in the context of the new Supreme Court rulings, how can we best engage and grow the engagement of the nuns in terms of drawing in progressive people of faith?
If you're not already doing this, volunteer with a political campaign that shares your values. Volunteer with them. Maybe that involves some grunt work, but that's okay. Or go sign up to be an election judge. Like, get involved in the political process. Go door to door for a candidate you like and get to talk to your neighbors about those issues, because you will end up meeting people who are not necessarily atheists, but who share your commitment to church state separation. And I think that's how we engage. That's how we grow the involvement. If we are aligned on like 75, 80% of these things, that's a huge step forward that we are not currently doing as well as we need to. And it's not like there's a shortage of candidates who are really good, that you could genuinely support. It's not lesser of two evils. It's, oh, I actually like this candidate. I want to see them in power. So what can we do as lay people if we're not running ourselves? It's working for them, doing what you can to help them get elected. That is where I would love to see our energy focused, because that will actually create a change that we need. And it's not always going to happen overnight. These are long games we are playing, but it's something our movement as a whole doesn't do enough of.
All right, our next question is from a fellow OnlySky contributor, Jonathan Pierce. Do you think America too often votes on single issues so they forgive all sorts of other misdemeanors or terrible policies just to achieve their one single goal, single-mindedly?
I think that's certainly true of conservatives in general. I mean, this is the power of abortion rights. I mean, why? I mean, the argument in 2016 to get these people to vote for someone who violated every conservative Christian principle you could think of, at least in theory, they had these principles. Why? How do you get those Christians to vote for Trump? The argument is he's going to put anti-abortion judges on the bench. So forget your other qualms about him. That's what you get in return. And what was it? Like 75 to 80% of white evangelicals voted for Trump because that's the issue that got them to the polls. So, I mean, it's worked for certain people. So how do we do that on the progressive side of things? I mean, I voted for Joe Biden. I'll say that, not for any one issue, and I'm not making a political speech here, but because there were so many issues, I don't know what the equivalent of that would be on the left. I mean, I hope they can make the overturning of Roe. I hope that inspires people to get to the polls. But this is where it gets interesting. Like, America does vote on single issues, and they're willing to overlook a lot of BS because they care about that one issue. For if you're on the left, I don't know that there's one issue that drives everybody. I would argue in 2020, maybe that one issue was get the other side out. But what happens in the future? You got to meet people where they're at. Everyone has something they care about. And if you can identify what that is and say, here is something you ought to care about, like here's a candidate you ought to care about. So figure out what that is. This requires talking to them and getting to know them and not nitpicking a small difference you may have with them. So I want people to figure out what that is because, again, there are more of us on the progressive side. There are more people who may not agree with us on the God question, but they agree with us on so many other things, and getting them engaged on those things. Figure out what you have in common and use that to get them passionate about these topics. So I think the right is really good at single issue things, and they try to make a big, and they try to pigeonhole everything. Like, we know the script, we know their playbook already. We need to figure out how to get all of the people on our side activated and motivated to push back in the same way. And I don't think there's one issue that's going to do it. So we have to be ready to engage on a whole bunch of them.
All right, and here is what I think is our last question. Is it ever worth trying to deconvert people?
Yeah, it is. And not just for selfish reasons. I mean, I think for those of us who have been atheist activists for a while, like, why do we care about this stuff? Why do I want you to care about this stuff? Because to me, it's not just about God, it's about trying to make sense of the world. I want to believe things that are true. And religion is one example of something that is not true, that is still widely accepted by so many people, and I want you to see the light. But it doesn't stop there, because there's no shortage of other kinds of misinformation. My hope is that if whatever I write on OnlySky or whatever I say in forums like this, if it challenges you to question your own beliefs and maybe rethink them, maybe over the long term that has an effect. Maybe you stop believing in God at some point. That's nice. I don't care. I don't keep a tally mark counter anywhere. But I hope that whatever it takes to get you to stop believing in God, those steps, the logical rules that you followed to get to that point, I hope you use them and apply them across the board. So is it worth trying to deconvert people? Yeah, but not because they become atheists, but because maybe they start thinking in a way they haven't before. Maybe they were never taught that it was okay to question authority. Maybe they were told there are some things you just got to take on faith. And getting them to realize, no, you don't have to do that. That there are questions you should ask people in positions of authority. There are critical thinking rules and practices you ought to adopt across your life. That's the thing we want to get them to do. Atheism is one path to get them to do that. But as we've seen, just because they go down that one path doesn't mean they're applying those principles across the board. And that would be disappointing.
And I think that's a wrap for the questions. So Hemant is going to talk about paid membership, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you joined us today, thank you so much for doing it. I am personally asking you, please consider becoming a supporting or founding member of OnlySky. You had to register for free to come to this event, but there are options to become a paid supporter. And as a contributor to OnlySky, I'm just telling you, it's a wonderful home for current events, for reactions to current events. And what's even better is there are so many other contributors writing about how to just live life as an atheist and what that means when it comes to death, when it comes to living a good secular life, how to raise your kids, how to go through the workday. There are so many other aspects of living as an atheist that we don't tend to hear about because the focus is always on culture wars or current events. But there are so many other amazing writers. And if you want to support those writers and build this site, we need you to become a supporting or founding member. And that allows us to keep our work free and accessible. So you can become a supporting member by going to onlysky.media/support. And if you like this AMA that we did here, in about a week and a half, we're going to do another one. And it features some of the top secular attorneys in our movement. This is on Monday, July 18th. I believe it has Rebecca Markert of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, Allison Gill of American Atheists, Monica Miller from the American Humanist Association. I apologize if there's anyone else that I'm forgetting right now, but there's a panel of amazing attorneys who work on church-state separation issues from an atheist perspective. They have a podcast called We Dissent that's also fantastic. You should check that out. They're going to be doing this soon, so I hope you sign up for that. Again, you could register in the live chat, I believe. There's a link for that there. Thank you to all of you who follow me and support me on OnlySky, so I hope to see you soon.
All right, and we have one final question before we wrap things up. What is your favorite thing about OnlySky?
I really appreciate being able to read a variety of articles from people about living life as an atheist, where the assumption is God doesn't exist. No one feels the need to justify that. It's a community of people who live in reality, and getting to learn about their life experiences and what they're passionate about in a way that's not necessarily tied to just the news, which personally is all I seem to focus on. It's really nice to be able to get a sense of other people's secular lives in a way that's not just tied to current events. That is really cool. I appreciate being part of that community.
All right, I think that's a wrap for us. I'd like to thank everyone for coming out and attending the AMA. This is our first AMA event, and we have another event coming up soon. And see you guys next time. Great to have this.